Is the U.S. government just writing blank checks over to foreign policies that are trying to defend their borders? Or are these actually legitimate things? Because it looks like the new iteration of a blank check being written is over to Taiwan. And that's because articles like this of Alternative Press News are saying U.S. okays military aid to Taiwan under a program usually reserved for sovereign nations. It has been no secret that the South China Sea's waters are highly contested between freedom of trade, freedom of navigation, and international spaces, and that has led the aggression of Chinese to build man-made islands and also go into different airspaces and places within inside the waters there to show their level of force that they're willing to project on these smaller areas such as Taiwan. And it's no secret that the U.S. has had some vested interest to make sure Taiwan is still going to be able to be a solo sovereign nation and act independently, but for some reason Hong Kong was not only a couple years ago, even though they said they no longer wanted to be under the rule of the two-party system. But that is besides the point, probably too close to home. But it looks like this budget is a quotations modest budget, according to many sources. It says the Biden administration has approved the first ever U.S. military transfer to Taiwan under a program generally reserved for assistance to sovereign independent states. Obviously, this is contested with China because this is deeming them and us saying in a formal being that they are independent and they are not part of the CCP. It said the State Department notified Congress of the sale on Wednesday. It said the material would be, quotations, be used to strengthen Taiwan's self-defense capabilities through joint and combined defense capability and enhance maritime dominance awareness. If you guys like what I cover on the show, make sure you guys like, comment, subscribe, notification about all that good stuff. Comment down what you guys think about these stories as they're going on and unfolding, because I think that's where the discussion takes place. So I will say that this is looking at maritime as far as naval power. As many of you guys have watched this channel, I've discussed this. Anything in the water is especially military related. The cost to build, the cost to maintain, the cost to ensure that you are retrofitting and appropriately taking care of maritime assets is probably the biggest pain in the ass of any military budget out there. They say the package is modest, only $80 million of what Congress had set aside as a potential $2 billion, but the implications of using the so-called foreign military financing program to provide it will likely infuriate China. They say Beijing, which regards Taiwan as a renegade province, has repeatedly not ruled out the use of force to reunite it with the mainland and ferociously protest all U.S. arms sales to the self-governing island. However, that should not be the case, because it looks like the U.S. military has been involved with ensuring that they are getting F-16 capabilities. On top of that, you can look at titles of certain articles that were only noted a little bit ago where they were mentioning here that they say U.S. approves new $500 million arms sale to Taiwan as aggression from China intensifies. But if we're looking at getting an approval of upwards of $2 billion to go over to Taiwan, I mean, this $500 million is only a drop in the bucket of what it could be if you guys want to look at it, because in comparison, you know, obviously to look at the other side of this on the eastern side of Europe here, where they're talking about $75 billion approximately has gone over to Ukraine in the past 2 years. And breaking that down into much more finite things can be seen in this chart right here, where 3.9 billion of that 5% is going to humanitarian, 26%, 34% to financial aid there, and then 24% to security assistance, and then 23 billion, 31% to weapons equipment, and then 6% going to grants and loans for weapons and equipment. So totaling 61% of this is going just to actual military stuff and not including the other social things that are needed to ensure that they're still able to operate as the country itself. They say, however, previous arms sales to Taiwan have been approved under other authorities that do not necessarily imply statehood. U.S. officials were quick to say that the provision of the FMF funding to Taiwan did not represent a change in policy. It's a position the Chinese are sure to disagree with. Yeah, and I think this is just another Cold War tactic where things are going to start coming together. You're going to see more aggression from China. You're going to see if they are able to do this and have maritime forces as a greater presence in Taiwan, there's just going to be greater aggression towards them, if anything. And it should be noted that in comparison to other instances, when we're talking about funding that's been done for other countries in order to support during times of war like this, we've only seen this during an African Union, right? Like there's no other times that we've seen this, and that was noted over in Ethiopia. They clarified saying the notification, a copy of which was obtained by the Associated Press, did not specify what military equipment or systems will be paid for under FMF, which commits U.S. taxpayer dollars to pay for the supply of material to foreign countries. You are hearing that here, ladies and gents. We are currently paying almost $1 trillion, $700 something billion, estimated around $800 billion, in order to have the Department of Defense actually do its job and ensure that they are defending the United States. However, there's $75 billion that's gone over Ukraine. They talk somewhere upwards of $2 billion, and they're not even in any kind of active war from this. But it said items that could be covered would include air and coastal defense systems, armored vehicles, infantry fighting vehicles, drones, ballistic missile and cyber defenses, and advanced communications equipment. It added that protective gear and array of small, medium, and heavy weapon systems, ammunition, armored, and infantry fighting vehicles could be also included. In addition to equipment, FMF may also be used to support training for Taiwanese military forces. Unfortunately, if this does kick off, as many people have discussed on geopolitical, debates talking about when this aggression could occur, people are saying anywhere around 2025, even upwards up to 2028, 2030. So everyone's saying within the next 10 years, there's going to be some kind of aggression. And this is probably some response to that. But, I would also like to address that a lot of people talk about some of the programs and issues that the U.S. already faces, where this level of billions of dollars could fix so many of those issues as well. I do understand that, and that's why I'm looking at this. I'm like, funding two different wars at this point would run the U.S. dry and would only make us weaker from my perspective. Obviously, as we've talked about on this channel, inflation has been through the roof that we've seen beyond what we've ever seen before. And I'm like, are we just printing money at this point and sending it over to these places? And looking at this from an economic standpoint, I'd say a lot of Americans should be scared that their dollar is not going to go any further if we continue to send money away from the U.S. If we continue to do that, that's just, basic economics looking at where if dollar's not maintained here, it's going to go over there. And obviously people have been very highly critical of when we do send money to these places, because are they actually spending it in areas that are appropriate? Are they actually getting their bang for their buck for what they're spending it on? And is there some form of corruption or something like that happening? As that's been noted to be contested over in Ukraine as well. So I want to ask you guys, what do you guys think about this situation? Do you think that we should be involved as we are? Do you think that this is another step in the line of the sand as the aggressions toward China continue to go on? Or do you think this is just another Cold War tactic as we're seeing this line drawn in the sand even further? Let me know down in the comments below. As always, love you guys. See you next time.